You won't like hearing this. You're not a victim of rejection. You're its most loyal worshipper. Why do you ache for the ones who ignore you? Why does silence arouse something deeper than desire? Why does indifference taste like validation? This isn't love. This is addiction, but not the kind you recognize. It's a ritual so intimate, so ancient that you mistake it for fate. A wound dressed in poetry, a scar mistaken for destiny, and beneath it all something darker, something Jung warned us about. The unintegrated shadow. You weren't born craving pain. You were conditioned to see pain as a tension, to interpret abandonment as proof that you were real. Somewhere in your past, maybe childhood, maybe a moment too painful to name, your unconscious made a silent vow. If I'm rejected, then at least I exist. And so began the cycle. You chase what breaks you, you run toward what withdraws, and you call it romance. Carl Jung would say this isn't about the person rejecting you, it's about the part of you that rejects yourself. The forgotten child inside, the voice you muted long ago, the shadow and buried, shamed, starved, now demanding to be seen through heartbreak. You fall for people who reject you because they mirror the rejection already pulsing inside you. They resonate with your deepest wound, and as long as that wound is unhealed, you'll keep confusing pain with passion, rejection with recognition, silence with safety. But here's the truth you've avoided. You are addicted to what you haven't forgiven. And until you face the ghost in your mirror, you'll keep falling for those who disappear. The question is no longer, why do they reject me? It's, why do you keep opening the door? And once you ask that, you can't unsee the answer. They don't need to scream. They don't need to insult you. All they have to do is disappear. And somehow that devastates you more than any visible betrayal ever could. Why? Because absence doesn't just wound. It confuses. It turns the soul in on itself. It forces you to question your worth in silence, where no defense is possible. And in that spiral, you're not just hurt, you're haunted. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is the spell you're under. You're not in love with them. You're in love with the pattern, the slow starvation of affection, the craving that never gets fulfilled, the breadcrumb of attention that keeps you crawling back, humiliated, but hopeful. You learned long ago that love meant waiting, that love required suffering, that if you just endured a little longer, proved yourself a little more, stayed a little quieter, you'd be chosen. But chosen by whom? A ghost, a phantom of your wounded past. Every time you chase someone emotionally unavailable, you're not seeking connection, you're seeking resolution. You want the ending you never got. You want the apology no one gave. You want the warmth withheld by someone long gone, projected onto a stranger who doesn't even know your real name. This is the seduction of emotional starvation. You don't know who you are without the ache, so you romanticize rejection. You make absence sacred. You call it a test from the universe. Thurston, when it's just the repetition of your unresolved trauma. They're not rejecting you. They're revealing how deeply you've rejected yourself. And the more you try to win them, the more you abandon the only person truly capable of staying. It's not them you're obsessed with. It's what they awaken in you. They walk into your life, seemingly ordinary, a glance, a text, a lingering silence, and suddenly your entire nervous system ignites. You call it chemistry, destiny, but Jung would call it projection. You aren't seeing them. You're seeing your shadow dressed in their skin. The shadow is everything you've disowned, your neediness, your rage, your desperation, your shame. You buried it deep to survive, to be accepted, to be loved, to be good. But the psyche doesn't forget what the ego hides. So it hunts, not for peace, for recognition. And when it finds someone emotionally distant, cold, or unpredictable, it whispers, there. That's the one. The perfect mirror. The one who will reflect back your invisibility, your abandonment, your ache. The one who will not love you, just like the people who mattered most when you were too young to understand. But make no mistake, this isn't attraction. It's a reenactment, a sacred ritual of pain. You're not falling for a person. You're falling into a pattern, hoping this time the ending will change. But it won't. Not until you change. As long as your shadow is unintegrated, it will keep choosing people who carry its signature. People who validate your inner exile. People who match the frequency of your unconscious wound. This is not punishment, it's a calling. Your psyche is not cruel. It's precise. It recreates the original injury, so you're forced to see it, not to suffer but to wake up. The ones who reject you are not enemies, they are messengers. They are keys. And until you decode the lesson, you will keep unlocking the same door to the same emptiness. So what happens if you finally stop chasing the ghost? You think you're being rejected for who you are. But the truth is, you're being rejected for the mask you wear, the persona, that curated version of you designed to win approval is seductive but hollow. It smiles when you're crumbling. It says, "I'm fine," when you're screaming inside. It plays roles so convincingly even you forget you're acting. Jung warned us. The more we identify with the persona, the more we estrange ourselves from our true nature. And here's the trap. You attract people to the persona, and then blame yourself when they don't see you. But how could they? They were never introduced to your soul, only to your survival strategy. You were taught early on that love is conditional, that being real is dangerous, that if you show too much, feel too deeply, or want too loudly, you'll be cast out, so you adapted. You became what was safe, charming, composed, accommodating, invisible. But the cost of that invisibility, you stopped being seen, and even by yourself. And now every time someone leaves, it confirms the lie you've always feared. I'm not enough, but it's not that you're not enough. It's that they were never loving you. They were responding to your mask. Rejection then becomes a strange kind of mercy. It cracks the persona, it exposes the lie, it asks you, who are you beneath the performance? The problem isn't that you've been abandoned. The problem is that you abandoned yourself first. And until you reclaim the parts you've exiled, the mess, the need, the rawness, you'll keep performing, and they'll keep disappearing. Because no one can truly stay with you if you're not even there. So ask yourself, what would happen if just once you dared to be fully real? It didn't start with them, it started with home. Long before the heartbreaks and betrayals, long before you fell for people who ghosted, withheld, or ignored you, there was a room, a look, a silence, a moment when your nervous system learned, love doesn't come easy, love must be earned. And so you began your apprenticeship in pain, not by choice, by necessity. To survive, you made sense of the emotional gaps. You blamed yourself. You convinced your young heart that if you could just be better, quieter, more helpful, they'd finally see you. But they didn't, not because you weren't worthy, but because they were wounded too. Jung believed that the child carries the wound of the parent, and unless that wound is made conscious, it becomes your compass. You don't seek what's healthy, you seek what's familiar. Even if that familiarity is absence, unpredictability, or emotional coldness. So you grow up chasing the same blueprint. You find lovers who feel like home, not because they're safe, but because they echo the ache you never resolved. And when they pull away, your body doesn't just feel rejected. It feels recognized. This is why you confuse anxiety with attraction, why you mistake longing for love. Because your heart doesn't want new love. It wants old pain, redeemed. But it won't be redeemed by reenacting it. You can't rewrite your story by choosing the same characters in different bodies. You want healing. Stop asking others to do what your parents couldn't. Stop expecting closure from people who don't even know what they've triggered in you. The child within is still waiting, but not for them. For you. Will you keep abandoning them for the ghost of your past? Or will you finally turn inward and listen? Every time you silence your truth to keep them, you betray yourself a little more. And you feel it, don't you? That subtle tightening in your chest, that quiet ache that follows every moment you swallow your feelings, dismiss your needs, or laugh at things that hurt you. You call it compromise. But Jung would call it fragmentation. The soul can't thrive when it's fractured. When you amputate parts of yourself just to be loved, you don't gain connection, you gain performance. And eventually, you start confusing being wanted and with being used. You show up as the version of you they'll accept, not the one that cries too much, not the one that asks uncomfortable questions, not the one that says no. But here's the truth. If someone only stays because you hide who you are, they're not staying with you. They're staying with your silence, and your silence has a cost. Jung taught that the unexamined self will always rebel in secret. That, the parts of you suppressed for love will eventually sabotage it. The longer you play the role, the more resentment brews beneath the surface. A resentment not just toward them, but toward you, because deep down, you know that by making yourself smaller, more convenient, more digestible, you're abandoning the one person you swore you'd protect yourself. You wonder why they leave. But maybe the better question is, why do you keep leaving you? This is the ritual of self-betrayal. Slow, subtle, devastating. And the more you repeat it, the more love feels like loss. Because it is. It's not your heart they're breaking. It's the mask you've glued to it. So what happens when you stop begging to be chosen? And finally choose yourself. You've been told a lie your entire life, a quiet, corrosive lie that burrowed deep into your psyche. You must earn love, be better, be useful, be beautiful, be smart. Then, maybe then, you'll be enough. But enough. For who? This is the tragedy of conditional worth. The belief that your value depends on your performance, your productivity, your perfection. It's a system designed to keep you hungry, because as long as you're chasing worth, you won't question the system itself. And in love, this manifests as desperation, not passion. Desperation. You accept breadcrumbs and call it a feast. You call emotional neglect space. You call cruelty tough love. You build entire relationships around people who make you prove yourself, and then collapse when they walk away. Carl Jung would say, this is the tyranny of the persona. You've mistaken the role for the soul. You've forgotten that worth is not something you achieve. It's something you remember. But how can you remember your worth when all your energy is spent performing for people who don't even see you? The truth is, you never needed to be fixed. You needed to be found, not by them, by you. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to be worthy, you become powerful. Because you no longer need to chase people who reflect your insecurity. You start attracting those who reflect your wholeness. But to do that, you must stop begging the world to validate your existence. You must reclaim the parts of you that were labeled too much, or too sensitive, or too needy. Those parts are not flaws, they are signals, messages from the self you abandoned when love became a competition. So let me ask you, if you didn't have to earn love, if you were already worthy, how differently would you live? You keep asking, why does this always happen to me? Wrong question. The real question is, why do you keep happening to this? Repetition isn't coincidence. It's a message. Your psyche isn't punishing you. It's showing you the pattern. Over and over with precision, until you finally stop blaming the mirror and look at the face staring into it. You fall for the same archetype, distant, unavailable, mysteriously cruel. Why? Because your wound is playing matchmaker. Jung would call this a psychic compulsion, the unconscious drive to re-experience trauma in the hope of rewriting its ending. But trauma doesn't heal by reenactment. It heals by confrontation. And you're not confronting it. You're romanticizing it. You say they're different this time, but are they, or did they just trigger a slightly different variation of the same ache? You're not cursed. You're conditioned. And until you break the ritual, until you stop chasing ghosts and start honoring your own presence, the story won't change. Different faces. Same ending. You are not in a cycle of bad luck. You are in a cycle of unconscious selection. The people you attract mirror your level of self-relationship. If you abandon yourself, you will find those who confirm that abandonment. If you suppress your voice, you will love those who silence it further. If you believe you are broken, you will call neglect normal and validation suspicious. This is not love. It's a mirror, and you're staring at your own reflection, distorted, fractured, familiar. But the moment you stop seeing them as your salvation and start seeing them as symbols, you wake up. Because healing doesn't come When the pattern stops, it comes when you stop dancing to it. What happens if the next time it knocks you don't open the door? The greatest heartbreak isn't losing them, it's losing the illusion they allowed you to maintain. You didn't just crave their affection, you craved what their presence promised. That maybe, this time, you were finally enough. That maybe, if they stayed, you could stop doubting your worth, but they didn't stay. And the illusion shattered. Jung wrote that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. You've done it too, haven't you? You've clung to the dream, even when reality screamed louder. You've edited your truth to fit their comfort. You've traded clarity for hope, and that hope became your drug. But the withdrawal has begun. When the illusion dies, grief sets in, not just for them, but for the version of yourself you constructed in their gaze, the perfect one, the lovable one, the one that finally maybe deserved to be chosen. But that was never you. That was your adaptation, a mask carved from old wounds and desperate prayers. The collapse you feel now, that's not destruction, that's liberation. Because when the fantasy ends, something else becomes possible. Reality, wholeness. You, not the version of you they might have wanted, but the one you buried to earn their crumbs. Let that version die. Let the illusion dissolve, because what's left behind isn't broken. It's real, raw, unpolished, undeniable, and maybe for the first time you are no longer chasing love outside of yourself, but reclaiming it from the inside out. So now the final question rises. When you stop begging to be seen, are you ready to see yourself? This was never about them. It was never about the one who didn't text back, the one who vanished without a word, the one who loved you with conditions, disappeared in silence, or dangled affection like bait. They were just symbols, messengers, reflections. Every rejection carved into your soul was a doorway, not into their heart, but into your own. Unconscious, and now, you stand at the threshold. Jung taught that healing is not becoming better, it is becoming whole, not fixing yourself, but reclaiming what you exiled. The needy part, the angry part, the scared, jealous, desperate, longing, human part, all of it. Because until you invite those pieces back, you'll keep splitting your soul to make others comfortable. You've been running from yourself, disguising abandonment as romance, confusing emotional hunger for chemistry, worshipping the pain that once kept you safe. But that version of you, the one who chased ghosts and called it fate, is dying, and that death is sacred, because from that funeral rises someone else, someone who no longer waits to be chosen, someone who no longer edits their truth for crumbs of attention, someone who knows, I was never unworthy, I was just unseen. You don't need another apology. You don't need closure from the one who left. You don't need to prove your value to anyone who couldn't see it. You need one thing: to come home. Home is not a person, it's a state of being, a reunion with the parts of you that were never truly lost, just forgotten. The shadow doesn't disappear, it integrates, it becomes your compass, your power, your guide. This is not the end of your story. It's the first chapter where you write it. So ask yourself now, not as the wounded but as the awakened, are you ready to stop chasing ghosts and become the one who stays? Welcome back. You are whole.